Our third speaker is Katie Smith. Katie is a digital media manager with the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. She works with DNCR divisions across the state on creative campaign development and planning across digital platforms. Katie has over 10 years of experience in creating and managing digital content that builds relationships for organizations and individuals. She has been a featured speaker on Microsoft's Underground Tour and Hack the Classroom, and highlighted on Skype's Social Good blog. She was selected to join the NASA social media team in 2017, helping cover Cassini's grand finale. Her love of data science and storytelling are a perfect mashup for crafting powerful and successful social media campaigns. Katie holds a BS in biology from the University of Georgia and a master in natural resource policy and administration from NC State University. I'm really pleased to introduce Katie Smith. I think I said thrilled for everyone else. I'm thrilled to introduce Katie Smith.
I will say that proves that you can get a degree in something and then end up in a profession that really doesn't have a whole lot to do with that. But I do have a love of science. So what I do with the department is I sit down, we have a lot of things under our department. Kind of going back to most people don't know what we are. When people ask where I work, they go, oh, well, what do you do? And I say, a lot of stuff. So we are the Department of Fun, we joke. But one of the things is what we're known for really is the stories that we tell, right? We're the keepers of the history of North Carolina. We're the keepers of the natural history. And so what I do is I sit down with folks and we have experts in everything, right? The lead, the world expert in, let's say, trapjaw ants. How do you take what they're doing and present that to the public in a way that makes sense, right? And so part of what I work with is what I like to call the Content Conundrum. So we build these websites, we have content on there, but how do we get it to the public that drives them back to the website? And so there's been lots and lots of data done about how social media and SEO kind of go together, right? Search engine optimization. Now, while Google rankings are kind of a mystery in themselves, and we all try to get those rankings and we focus on the numbers, it really goes back to the engagement and the communications that we have with the public. And I think Nikhil was spot on with, you don't really know what they want until you actually look at what they're saying. And I know for us, I spend a lot of time stalking people, not in a creepy way, but I go through, it's kind of like, raise your hand if you've ever Googled yourself. If you haven't, that's sad. But if you Google yourself, right, I find most departments don't look at what are people saying about them. And that helps guide, like, what are the things that you need to be producing that will be helpful to them. I know for us, we see a lot of people talking about Bojangles. People really like Bojangles in North Carolina. They really like learning about where they live, the history. So a big part of how we do that is through content. So when people build a website, they might have websites that have general information for the public, how-to things, like how do I sign up for this? How do I get this form? But there's so much more stuff that you can be sharing on your website that's not just that. A great example is BuzzFeed, right? So I'm strolling through Facebook, and I see 21 memes your dog would definitely laugh at if they could read or laugh, right? Will I click on this? Yes, because I'm weak, and I have to read this, right? Because for what people want on social media is they want things they don't really have to think about, they can kind of get away from their life, and they want to have a certain feeling of shareability, right? I saw this really great thing and I want to tell everybody about it. And so what we struggle with is how do we get the content on our website that sometimes might be a little dry or boring, we use social media to get out to public to drive them back. And so that's what you have to think about when you're taking something like a press release, right, that everybody has to put out, or you're taking something like an event that's happening and you want to share that with the public, but you want them to not only get excited about it, you want them to tell 100 of their closest friends. Now, unfortunately, Facebook, I don't know if you've heard, is kind of in the hot water right now. It's not my preferred platform, but it is amazing. I get information out to people. There's 2 billion users at any time somebody's on Facebook looking at something. And you're kind of competing for their attention. So when you get this information out, you have to do it in a way that's exciting. And not only that, they want to tell their friends about it. The first thing that I always encourage people to do is look at the analytics on your social media platforms, because this is going to help drive the type of content that you might want to put out. So most of them, like Facebook, Twitter, have built-in analytics, and it's going to tell you basically who is looking at your stuff, who's following you, right? So for us on Facebook, it is typically the 45 to 54 range. Is this the same for Twitter? No. Is this the same for Instagram? No. So that automatically tells me that I'm going to have to change that content across platforms, and that there are certain things on our website that might be interesting to this group, but not necessarily interesting to a group on Twitter. So the second thing I do is I look at what are the things people are looking at on our website. And it's exactly right. I would be pulling my hair out if I obsessed about numbers, because there's, I'll post something and I get one like and I'm very sad about it, right? But what I do is that you have to look at what are the things people are visiting on your website. And that's going to drive what are the things that you can produce or share more of. In our case, it's our blogs. And so I always talk to people about why blogs are so important. But before you can really do that, you have to create a calendar. So most places have social media. If anything, they have a Facebook page. But they kind of just throw stuff up randomly. And then they kind of like, I'm really upset because I'm not getting followers or nobody's sharing my stuff. But they're not really thinking about how they can build that into what's already existing, right? So for example, I don't know if you guys recently saw the trending hashtag Old Headshot Day. It was amazing the amount of people that had headshots, right? I was like, whoa, I don't have a headshot. I feel really left out on this. But that just blew up, and people from all over were like, how can I get in on this? And people, it was so funny, because I saw museums posting like old paintings of people, like George Washington for like Old Headshot Day. So it's where you can find creative ways to tell your story, trending on what's happening. So the first thing I do when I wake up is I look at what's happening in the news, what are some ways we can connect with people and kind of take advantage of that and ride those coattails. And then you build in that calendar, right? So Throwback Thursday, Motivation Monday, how are things that we can build from our website that we can share to the public through social media? The other thing that sometimes people struggle with is what kind of content can you put out? Now, I will say that Kim was right on about accessibility. So that's one thing that we've been working on is when we create content, if we share it on social media or we share it on our website or we put it on our website, we're trying to build in those accessibility features and using that. One that a lot of people don't think about is ebooks, right? So for example, let's say that you notice that a lot of people keep asking about the same thing or they're really interested in a specific topic. Do you have those digital assets already together that you can put into an ebook that drives people to your webpage to download it, right? And you see this happening a lot more because it's a great way to get traffic to your website for a topic that people are really interested in. The second thing is how-to posts, right? So if you, let's say, search how to crochet, obviously Craft Yarn Council is really doing well because this is the first thing that pops up. And it basically is step 1, step 2, step 3. It walks people through a very specific thing. So for us, for example, if someone's trying to figure out how to access like genealogical records, a how-to that's very simple and to the point would be really helpful, and it would be a query that would people put in, it would kind of bump you up in the rankings. The other thing is infographics. And so for infographics, this is a great way to tell information about something, but in a way that's a little bit different. So if people are in a quick, want to just look at something, but they don't want to have to read through lots of text, infographics can be a great way to do that. The other is podcasts. We've seen this revolution in podcasts, right? Everybody has a podcast. And so a lot of places, not only can you listen to it on, let's say, your cell phone or other types of podcast apps, but people also put on their website. Why is that important? Because a lot of people might be working in a location where they can't necessarily get on their phone, but they can get on their desktop and listen to it while they work, right? So you always want to put not just your digital assets, let's say you have an app, but you can also put it on your website like NPR does. The other thing that I've seen is webinars. Now, here's a great example. Last year we had, or the year before, we had the National Genealogical Society Conference here in Raleigh. And I met with the State Library, and they said, hey, we have this conference coming. We really would love to do a Facebook Live. And we thought about, well, what could we do a Facebook Live about that would be really interesting? And so what we did is we kind of put together this short 20, 30-minute piece that walked conference goers through how do you use the things that are on the website for the State Library. How do you access these database records? What are the things you want to look for? And at the time, because don't know a lot about genealogy, I didn't think, oh, well, we'll see how it does. it blew up. I could not believe the amount of people that were watching this. And even to this day, because we archive on Facebook, we just keep getting people that go back to it. And so that was a great kind of situation where we realized that using something like Facebook Live to talk about assets we have on our website really helped bring that connection together, but not just for people that live in North Carolina, but for people all over the world, which is what we had people watching this, because we not only provide digital resources to people in North Carolina, but anybody can access them. The other is blogs. By far, that is probably the most popular thing we have on our website. And there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. What I've seen is a lot of people think blogs and they think just lots of text, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. For us, this day in North Carolina history is by far our most popular. We have looked at a lot of ways how we can get this out to the public, and I'll talk about that in a second with tools. But when you think about blogs, it can really be anything. My personal preference is listicles, right? So listicles, step-by-step, three-point outline. It could be interview, case studies, research, narrative, checklists, right? So for example, if you're talking about summertime, what are the 8 things you need to look for when buying sunscreen? Would I look at that? Yes, because I don't know anything about sunscreen. So you want to start thinking about what are the people going to be searching for that they want quick information. You're putting it on your blog, and it's going to drive traffic to it. The other thing that I see sometimes with blogs is they have these like really obscure headlines that nobody would search for, right? So not only are you creating keyword tags for your website, but you need to think about that when you're building your blogs. What are the things that people will be looking for? And there's a lot of great resources out there, especially for copywriting, that kind of show you. If you put in 8 whatever, you're going to get pages of just 8 ways to do something, right? People want to know exactly what you're going to be looking at when you click on this page. You don't want to have to go through tons of stuff. You want it itemized. So really think about those headlines. And the other way is to promote your blog, right? So for us, we're on Digital Commons. We already have social sharing built into all of our pages. So if you open up a blog page, you're going to be able to share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that when you're sharing this information from your website, you're including an image. Now, one of the things that is really great, and like Kim talked about, is Facebook and Twitter now have built-in accessibility. So you can go in and add alt text to images, and I highly recommend that. And the same thing with Facebook, you want to say exactly what kind of image people are looking at. But that's another way to kind of drive it back to your website. You want to keep up with it and how people are talking about it. So just because you post it once doesn't mean you have to just keep it there. You can continuously cycle through this type of content from when it makes the most sense. Also getting guest bloggers, reblogging, those types of things are really helpful. Now, the other thing you want to do is if you're sharing stuff from your website, as soon as you, let's say, you post something, you're not going to immediately go, okay, I'm going to put this on social media. You want to be timely about it. There are specific times when people are looking at their phone. So for Twitter, it's 5 p.m., Facebook is 8 p.m., LinkedIn is 9 a.m., Instagram is 7 p.m. And I would say this is pretty spot on because I've done a lot of experimenting to see what would happen. And I would say this is when we get the most traffic. So if you have a really important message you want to get out, don't send it out at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. Schedule it to go out on, let's say, a Thursday at 8 p.m. when you know a lot of people are going to see it. Share multiple times and make the messaging different each time, right? So if you're sharing a new blog post, pick a couple things you want to highlight from that and spread out your scheduling across the month to see what kind of engagement that you're going to get. Use the tools. So I know a lot of folks get really overwhelmed about social media because I know for our department, social media is like a third thing to add onto their job that they didn't really sign up to do, but they know they have to share it with people. And so there's a lot of ways that you can use free tools because we're government, we're not really going to pay for them, right? So I use a lot of open source free stuff. So some examples, of course, would be like Hootsuite, which is a social media scheduling platform. It allows you to schedule stuff ahead of time. So I'll sit down on a Monday, I know my calendar, I get it scheduled, and then I don't have to worry about it. So for example, our Today in History was on a WordPress site. We then migrated it to our Drupal platform and then kind of sat there. And then we started thinking, how can we get people out to this? So we have people subscribe for an email newsletter. We then set that up on MailChimp that runs an RSS feed. That RSS feed automatically goes out to people who've signed up every morning at 7 a.m. when people first wake up and they want to read about it. We pull the 4 main blog posts that go out every day. I then set it up through Zapier. Zapier is an if-then situation. So as soon as that RSS feed goes, it triggers Zapier to send it out on social media. I don't have to do anything. It's amazing, right? So these are the types of tools you can use to make it so much more efficient and so much easier. And then, of course, using insights to see how are those things doing, right? If it failed, why did it fail? What are some ways that you can change it? What are some wording you might want to use next time? We talked a little about trending hashtags, right? So for something like Facebook, you're not necessarily going to use hashtags when you share content because most people aren't going to click on those unless it's something very specific. Really where you're going to see this is Instagram and Twitter. And so you can see here that 1 to 2 hashtags is optimal, and then it talks about kind of engagement rates, and then going into 40% of tweets with hashtags get retweeted. And that's because these are things people are going to be looking for, and it's going to start trending in their timeline, and they're going to be able to share it. The other thing is optimize your calls to action. So some people want to be told what to do, right? So you want to say, like, here is this thing, I would like you to learn more about it. Here is this thing, I would like you to sign up for it, right? So they have a lot of this integrated into Facebook especially to get people motivated to do this. And so you want to be able to use that. There's been several studies done that people who left call to actions off saw less engagement than when they did that with the content they were sharing. Now, you do want to share, focus on visual content. Now, of course on a website you're going to have text, but if you're trying to catch somebody really quick and you want them to look at it, because most people now's attention span when they're on their phone is very minute. So you want that visual element that's going to go, whoa, I'm going to stop and look at this. I might click and want to read further about it. You can do that through graphs, GIFs, videos, photos, infographics, and animations. Now, I know I'm blowing your mind. So some of these things, like I said, are all things that you can start integrating into the content that you have. And so I always encourage people to go back look at the analytics. What are the things that are the most popular? What are ways that you can kind of take and repurpose that content? What are new things that you can build into your existing website that can drive more traffic back? And one of those things especially, I think, is blogs, and that's been really successful for us. And thinking about what are the niches or the blogs that you can use. And we have several blogs that we put out, not just a day in history, and all of them have done really well because they're topics that people are really interested in. And so those are kind of getting into that, understanding more about the user and what they want versus what I necessarily am interested in or what I think they need. And so one of the things with social media that's really great, I won't make you keep watching that. One of the things that's really great with social media is you can poll people. So for example, I was like, hey, should we do this North Carolina Twitter chat on books, like a book club? And I thought, I don't know if people would be interested, so I set up a Twitter poll and I asked people, and they were like, yes, I'm very interested. So these are really ways you can use this group of people already that will help drive some of the choices that you make as far as the content and the ways that you want to engage with them.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Hey, let's hear it for all 3 of our speakers. This was great.